Like she said, my name is Kim Arrow, and 2 years ago, in December of 2011, I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. Do we have any cancer survivors here? No. Awesome. That's great. Well, when you talk to cancer survivors, I'm sure that you've heard before that cancer changes everything. It changes your life, it changes good ways and bad ways, and that's sort of an understatement. It does change everything, especially at the time I was 32. I had a 6-year-old son, and I had just had a baby about a year before, so I had a 1-year-old, and it kind of hit out of nowhere. So, young, mother trying to figure out what's wrong with me, my story kind of started. Well, I had my son, and I was nursing, and so, there was a lot of stuff that goes along with nursing, ladies, hormones going crazy. I lost a lot of weight, but my son had food allergies, so I was nursing, had to cut out a lot from my diet, so it makes sense that I was going to lose weight. I had MRSA on my arm, which was kind of a random thing to happen, but the doctor put me on a sulfa antibiotic. And I had an allergic reaction, sent me to the hospital. And what they found when I got to the hospital was that my blood counts were very, very low. So I went to see, my doctor kind of went into high gear and said, oh, you've got to go see this oncologist like now. So I went to see her, and she thought, well, it was just a reaction to the sulfa, it caused your blood counts to drop, so it'll take a couple weeks, you'll get back to normal. But it never got back to normal. And I had started having this abdominal pain, and it never went away. It sort of kept getting worse. And after a couple of weeks, I was telling her at my checkup, this pain just never really went away. So she scheduled a CAT scan, and I think the actual words on the CAT scan were, small mass on right ovary likely to be a cyst. Now, ladies, you all know, we have had cysts, we have them a long time. I've had them rupture before. A cyst is not necessarily a big deal, especially when you're talking to a medical professional. It's like, yeah, okay, well, it'll go away. But follow up in 4 to 6 weeks with your gynecologist just to make sure. So, between that time, I had had a colonoscopy. I had all of these tests because it was just hurting that bad and it was getting worse. And at one point I was stretching one day, and I felt like something just ripped open inside of my stomach, and I couldn't breathe, I couldn't move, it just hurt that bad. So I went back to the doctor the next day, and he told me that I had spastic colon. So he gave me some pain medicine, and a couple weeks I just took pain medicine and went on. I was a mom, I had birthday parties coming up, I just had to get through it. And then it was time for my 6-week checkup with my gynecologist. So I went in, and he was going to do an ultrasound to check on the cyst to make sure it was gone. And when he did, he sort of gasped, and he said, wow, that's a lot of fluid. And I'm thinking, well, I just went to the bathroom, so I don't know really what kind of fluid you're talking about. And he said, I said, well, where did it come from? He said, well, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to know the answer, but I'm not a medical professional. If he doesn't know, then we're kind of in a bad situation. So he calls his head doctor in, and they're looking, and I'm on the table, and they're standing around, and they're all looking and saying, wow, yeah, well, that's a lot of fluid. So I'm starting to panic at this point, and I'm asking, well, what is it? What's wrong? So they're finding my left ovary. They couldn't find my right ovary. At that point, they just kind of said, well, we need you to come back in tomorrow, and we're going to draw some of the fluid off, test it, have another CAT scan, and we'll know more then. They didn't tell me anything at that visit. So when I walked out the door, within 15 minutes, I'm on Google on my phone looking up, abdominal fluid. And I realized at that point that I probably had cancer, because this fluid, it happens with liver failure, congestive heart failure, and cancer. That's like really the only time that you see it. So the next day was a Friday, and I went back, and I had the CAT scan, and they took the fluid off, which was, you know, a needle like this big stuck into my stomach, which was not fun. That weekend, waiting for the results from that was the most difficult couple of days I can't even describe. I cried half of the time, and you know, I watched my kids play and just prayed that I would be around to see them, because at that point, you know, everything you read, Google is not necessarily a good thing when you have a situation like this. Everything that you read says stage 4 cancer, you know, survival rate is next to nothing. So that, you know, I'm just trying to get through the weekend, just trying to hold it together. And I got the call Monday that there were no cancer cells in the fluid. So that was like, oh, you know, okay. So if they're not cancer cells in the fluid, then at least it's not stage 4 cancer. You know, anything else, we'll figure it out, but at least it's not terminal cancer. Still didn't know what it was though. So the doctor, basically every doctor I saw from that point on said, you're too young for cancer. It's not cancer. You don't fit the profile for cancer. So, okay, then what is it? They sent me to a specialist in Charlotte because whatever it was had to come out, whatever this mass was had to come out, and they wanted a specialist to do it. So, in the surgery, she came out and she said, I've never seen anything like that. She said it was like moss growing on the outside of your ovary. So we took it out, we took everything out, and we got to send it off for tests to find out what it is, because we still just don't know. And well, they sent me home to recover, and a couple days later I got the call that it was in fact cancer. It was a rare form of cancer. It's called granulosa cell tumor. And in my case, I was lucky, if you can say that cancer was lucky, because it was a form that had symptoms. Most of the time with ovarian cancer, there aren't any symptoms until it's too late, until you're stage 3 or stage 4. And it's been 3 years, and every doctor has misdiagnosed it, and now, you know, you've got a big mass in your stomach and it's already spread. So I was very lucky that I had symptoms and I was able to catch it early. So after the recovery process, let me back up a minute. That pain in my stomach when I felt like something was ripping through me, that was actually my ovary rupturing. So my ovary had ruptured and it was bleeding into my abdomen, and so the cancer cells were spreading. And so for that reason, we did chemo. And I was supposed to do 6 rounds of chemo. And I think I surprised everybody that everybody thought, oh, you're young, you'll do fine. And after the 5th round, I was in the hospital for a week. And I don't think I ever let myself think that the cancer was going to kill me. But that week in the hospital, I was so close to dying that, you know, that was the first time I think I really thought about that I was actually going to die. Because we know now, we didn't know then, but the doctors think I have some sort of autoimmune problem which caused my body to attack my blood cells. So then the chemo on top of that was a double whammy. So we dropped the last round. I only had 5 rounds instead of 6, so we dropped the last round. And that was June of last year. So I am 1 year out from my last chemo. My scans, I just had my 1-year scan last month and it was completely clear, so I'm doing really well. But one of the things that, I guess, halfway through my treatment, I was really down. I felt horrible. Emotionally, I was just spent. And I kind of had a talk with myself. I said, you know, cancer's not going to do this to me. It's not, you know, it might make me feel physically bad, but I'm not going to let it control everything else. And that was a turning point for me. That's when I started coming up with the thought of, I need to do something with this. My husband told me around that time, he said, you know, I think God gave you this for a reason, because he knew you'd do something with it. And I think, you know, that was true, because I started thinking of how can I use this to do good? How can I use my story to help others? So one of the things I do is I speak to medical students, PA students at Winston and in Charlotte about my symptoms, and there are several other ovarian cancer survivors that do it as well, so that the doctors in training can learn that ovarian cancer does not have a profile. You know, I didn't fit that profile. Well, there's no such thing as a profile. A lot of times it doesn't have symptoms. Bloating, feeling full after you eat, bladder issues. I mean, those are all things that we think of, oh, it's GI problems, oh, it's irritable bowel syndrome, or spastic colon, or heartburn, or whatever. But when you have those things consistently for a long period of time, you need to think, well, maybe it's something else. So we're trying to help doctors understand when they see a patient that has these symptoms that aren't going away, that maybe they need to think in the back of their mind that it might be something a little more serious. So that's one of the things that I do. And I also started Hope Swing, which is what Jean was talking about. It's a nonprofit. One of the things that helped me through my treatment and everything was all of the support that I got from family and friends and complete strangers who didn't even know me. So I wanted to sort of pay that forward and give back to other people who are diagnosed with cancer. So one of the projects that we're doing is providing care bags to people who are diagnosed in Iredell County. And it just has things like tissues and hand sanitizer and notebooks and pens and crossword puzzles and just little things like that that can help just make them feel like somebody thought of them, add a little help along the way for when somebody's starting treatment. We're also looking at doing like survivor networks and that sort of thing. So if somebody comes up and has been diagnosed with ovarian cancer, then they can call, or I can call them, and we can chat a little bit about, okay, well, this is what I went through, and hopefully my experience can help. One of the other projects that I'm so excited about, just got approval yesterday. The month of September is Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month, and we're going to be tealing the town of Statesville. We're going to be tying teal ribbons around downtown, the light post downtown, with little cards that the symptoms of ovarian cancer, so that people walking by and they're seeing this ribbon, and it'll help get some more knowledge, some more information about what ovarian cancer can look like. So that's something that we're just starting and we're really excited about. But when I started, I said, cancer changes you. It changed me good and bad. I mean, there are things that I'm just now figuring out the effects that cancer has had. But I like to think about the good and not the bad. It changes, for me, it changed my perspective. Going through treatment, especially with ovarian cancer, the survival rate is 3 out of 5 don't survive past 5 years. 3 out of 5. So I've already met several women who have since passed. So no matter how hard it was for me, I always knew that it could be a lot worse. And I think that's a good lesson in life. No matter how hard it is, be thankful for what you have. Be thankful for don't take anything for granted, because you could be 32 years old and have a newborn baby and life sweeps you off your feet. So that's something I try. I mean, I don't do it every day. I get mad sometimes at the little things, but I try to remind myself that there are more important things than whatever this is that's frustrating me right now. And then I think I told my husband the other day, I think one of the blessings of cancer, and he looked at me like, what do you mean? Cancer's not a blessing, but in ways it can be, because what it taught me, not only from the having a positive attitude and a positive perspective, but the healthcare side of things, being in control of your own healthcare. With everything that I went through and being misdiagnosed and kind of, oh, it's just a cyst, and oh, it's just GI problems. And I know people who did that for 3 years. And then when they finally were diagnosed, it's stage 3 or stage 4. So, I think of it like the ABCs of healthcare. You have to advocate for yourself, because nobody knows your body better than you. Nobody. Doctors only know what you tell them. It's not their fault. We don't know sometimes, oh, well, gosh, I've been having bloating for a couple weeks. Maybe I should say that to my doctor. They don't know if we don't tell them. So advocate for yourself. Be aware of your symptoms. If something is going on, pay attention to your body. It tells you these things. And then the C would be choose your own directive of healthcare. I hear a lot of times people saying, well, my doctor said this, but I don't really think I should do that. Then speak up, talk to your doctor. It needs to be a two-way street, because that's the only way that you can get to where you need to go. The blessing for me was that I learned those lessons, and when my son started having issues at 16 months, he stopped eating. I knew, okay, I'm going to listen to his symptoms, I'm going to be aware, and I need to advocate for him, because he can't advocate for himself. So I went to the doctor, and I said, I think he has sensory processing disorder. And she said, yep, I think you're right. So we got treatment for that. We got therapy for that. And then when he started having symptoms of autism, I said, well, doc, I think he needs to be evaluated for autism. And so we did that, and sure enough, he does have autism. So knowing how to speak up, knowing to pay attention to the symptoms, and controlling and choosing that healthcare directive for him has made such a difference in his life, because he got that early in intensive therapy. And he's a different kid today at almost 3 than he would have been if he had not received that. So to me, I think maybe one of the reasons that I went through what I went through was to give me the power to help him in his journey. So basically that's, I'm trying to share my story with everybody else, to raise awareness of ovarian cancer, to help people understand, to advocate, be aware, and control your health care. And I'm going to add a D to the ABCs, and that's don't ever give up. No matter what it is, whether it's healthcare or anything else, if you're talking to your doctor and you're not getting anywhere, don't give up. Keep talking, or find another doctor, or keep pushing, because it is your life, it is your health, it is your body. So, don't give up on that.